Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds, and in today's video topic, we will go over Ignite Fireball Meteor Sorcerer, a build that showcases the insane power of the legendary patch. Before we get into the video, if you've been enjoying the steady flow of last Epoch content, I suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that's the best way to support my efforts here at Epic Builds. So I have been amassing a lot of Ignite gear recently, specifically a bunch of LP items for Ignite, as I've been wanting to see if legendaries were strong enough to make Ignite work properly. Well, the first attempt at this, Forge Guard Ignite Warpath, was a complete success, and it hit out of the park. So I decided to change my sights to a much more elusive target, Fireball Ignite. It was nerfed into the ground a few patches ago, as EHG added a line of text to the most important node inside Fireball, the one that allows you to shotgun with your projectiles. Not only does it half your extra projectiles, it also reduces your cast speed per fireball by 5%. That is a lot of reduced cast speed when you have like 5 extra fireballs, which in turn reduces your DPS peak with Ignite. On a crit fireball build, it's not as important due to the fact of how instant the damage is, or flame burst from fireball as well, but for ignite fireball, this was actually very crippling. That's where this patch comes in. So for reference, with non-LP uniques, I am at 100k DPS on the dummy, and with all of my legendaries, I am at 200k DPS. So I am effectively doubling my damage, and my uniques aren't even that good or refined. You could easily squeeze out another 100k if you tried really hard in terms of blessings and idols and such, but I would heavily suggest not playing this build until you have a decent amount of the LP uniques of these, and I would not suggest starting this build as well, with the nature of how Fireball is hard to respec and to really do to how it requires all of its points to function properly. Does this mean the build is bad? It's alright. I mean, it feels satisfying to play, and it's fun to watch your DPS meter go higher as you invest more and more into a build. This does mean Ignite needs serious work, as investing as much as I have to see the number only go up by so much is more of a disappointment than anything. If this was a large amount of investment in almost any other build, I would probably be getting closer to insane levels of damage. We're also utilizing the mechanic of the free spell off teleport. This means we can use a Meteor every 5 seconds, and we can scale its mana cost to the moon and not care. And it helps our clear immensely. The shrapnel helps a lot for coverage as well. Pretty much treat it as a free screen clear every 5 seconds. You also get the nice Craterborn buff of cast speed, which we are in dire need of cast speed, and the mana gain back on Fireball use, which means we can ignore all the minus mana cost nodes inside Fireball and take whatever we want. The last thing I will note here is the conflagration damage from Enchant Weapon. So if you do not know, Enchant Weapon has a node that allows you to instantly proc all of your ignite damage on nearby enemies. This on its own is insane. As for Sorc, you get buttloads of ignite duration through the tree and passives and gearing, which lets us nuke mono bosses and annoying rares. It is effectively a I want you dead button for nearby enemies, which is fun. There's also the neat little thing where it takes those ignites and triples its damage. Yeah, the conflagration comes along with 200% more damage. I have hit Orbis for 500k with this build. It's kind of dumb. With all that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the build, and yes, I shaved again. So for the general rotation here, before we get into that, I just want to showcase. So I have a bunch of items here. These are all the non-unique, like the non-legendary versions. So I have like a Calamity with +1, a Bleeding Heart with +3, a Cinder Song with +1, a Atrophy with +2, and a Soulfire with +3, and this scavenger doesn't really matter. The only reason I'm running this scavenger, to be honest, is just for haste, because my fiery dragon shoes low rolled on the movement speed, so I'm a little bit slower than I'd want to, and I'm also not running movement speed rings, so that's why I'm running this. Technically, you'd be better off with a different belt for more damage. But just to show you how much damage I do with just these LP uniques on here, we're going to do the normal kind of rotation here. It's like I'm trying to like get the proper amount here. It's like 200k is like the what I got before. There you go, 220k. Yeah, 200k. Yeah, there you go. It's like 200k, right? Now, if I swap around here, which we'll do real quick, I will swap all of my items. If you don't know, I'm clicking right click to swap all my items. So now I have non-LP. Well, actually, let me just show you one thing. So here I'm at 745, right? That's an insane difference, isn't it? Yeah. So let's show you what it's like without. 130, 140k. So that's about 60,000 DPS less. Like that's about like 30% less DPS overall. That's not entirely bad. It's like acceptable, right? So for this actual skill rotation here, so what we do is we use teleport, which gives us a free spell, which we then cast Meteor, which it will clear a bunch, apply a bunch of ignites with the shrapnel. Then of course it gives us the Craterborn buff here for the cast speed and the mana gained from Cycle of Fire, which means our mana cost on our fireball is 1 per second. So here I'll show you. So as you can tell, my mana is 0. That's the main reason why we're using Meteor, is so that we can run our fireball like this, so we don't have to care about mana. Obviously, right? That's like the best thing about the Meteor thing, which is why we're using it. And of course, lots of clear stuff like that, but mainly because it makes my fireball cost 0, and I don't have to go into the minus mana cost nodes to make this possible. So that's mainly why Meteor is used there for. Now, of course, on bosses, what you can do is you can use this enchant weapon to conflagrate. The problem is nearby enemies don't count the dummy, so you could never test your conflagrate damage on the dummy, which is sad because I'd love to. But I've seen a 500k hit on Orbis, which if we were to take that and compare it to like how these things work, it would be about like 5 million on the dummy, like 4 5 million. So the build doesn't lack damage. Let's put it like that. It's just it looks like it lacks damage, but it does not because of the conflagrate every 12 seconds. But yeah, that's pretty much it. One more neat thing with the change to making it so ignite and stuff is added to the tooltip. Uh, your tooltips are actually way closer than normal. Like look at that, 176k. Like that's actually really close to how much DPS I actually have in the end. It's just not taking into account shred and stuff like that. So that's really cool. I really enjoy that. So just being able to see your DPS actually on your tooltip, that's like almost semi accurate. Like that's amazing. But yeah, let's get into skills, shall we? So for Fireball itself, we take 2 points travel into Conflagration. It's funny those nodes have the same name. 3 points travel into Flammability. We are fire resistance shred cap, so you don't need fire resistance shred from shamans, as you can tell. There you go. We're at cap already. Just took a few casts. Homing, this is absolutely important, as being able to home enemies means that we can actually clear monoliths quickly. It helps you curve into packs and kill them quickly, which is really good. 1 point into Flame Burst. Flame Burst is really good because it gives you a bunch of AoE, like free AoE here. So if you hit like the same pack of enemies like 6 times, it's really strong in that regard. Then I'm running one node into Volatile Flames, makes it so one less hit for Fireball to proc your Flame Burst. The problem is I don't have +2 to Fireball. I only have +1 to fire. I mean, fuck it, right? Might as well try it. Yeah, I have +1 to Fireball, not +2, so I can put a note in this. If you had Pierce Chance on your helmet, you could take a node outside of the piercing heat here and put it here. But currently, I can't really do that because of my gear. But yeah, this is where you'd put the 22nd point. 4 points into piercing heat. Of course, pierce chance is very important for fireball to make it feel good. Otherwise, it feels trash for clear. 1 point travel into orb of destruction. 1 point into plasma ball. Why are we running plasma ball? Well, it gives our, if you don't know, it gives our fireball the lightning tag. And why do we care about the lightning tag is because there's a node at the top of your dragon breath that gives us 100% ignite chance if we used a cold skill, but we use the cycle with mirror breath to give us the ignite chance instead of the chill, which is really strong because having all that extra ignite chance on our fire skills is really good when we have this many fucking fireballs, right? So a lot of ignite chance, that's what we want. So pretty much read it as 2 points for 100% increased ignite chance, global, by the way. And if you compare it to this node, it's like 2 points for 50%. So we're getting double our bang for a buck, and we're also applying the ignite chance to Meteor as well, which is obviously really strong. Then 3 points travel to wing fire. Although if I had +3 to fireball, I'd put the third point in here because that more damage is multiplicative with the dot, and of course the range is really nice. Then 1 point to fire spray adds a little bit of mana, extra projectiles. 1 point to embers. This is the node that was nerfed. We get negative 10% cast speed per extra projectile. It is very punishing, as you can tell. My cast speed is terrible, but if I take off my wand, it's a little bit better. So cast speed is definitely a demon, but it's fine for this build because you don't actually need to cast that often thanks to all of the factors involved. And of course, 2 points in a dancing fire for the extra projectiles. So with the way it's set up now, we have one extra projectile here, so that's one. Two here, that's three. So you'd be at 4 projectiles normally, but we have a Cinder Song, which gives us +2. So this would be +5 projectiles. So we hit 5 times per fireball cast. So obviously the minus cast speed is there to make it so that we're not able to stack as much ignites, which is a killjoy. Then for Meteor, we need to talk about teleport first. So 1 point travel into Resonant Plasma, 4 points into Elemental Affinity, just gives us a little bit extra ignite chance boost. Ignite like percentage. It doesn't really matter. It's just extra points. 2 points travel to Crystalline Passage, 4 points into Flicker. Our mana cost is very close to being unsustainable, so having this mana efficiency is really nice for teleport. Then 1 point into Wormhole. Global cooldown is really nice because if we look at our cooldown, 5.6 goes to 5.3. And of course, I'll show you again 12.5, 12 seconds. So it's still something, right? And our cooldowns are very important for this build. 1 point travel into time dilation, 1 point into mana tunnel. This makes it so the next spell cast after teleport is free. So we teleport Meteor and it's always free. I don't know how long this is going to stay in the game because it seems pretty ridiculous, but who knows. Then move my head here. 5 points into Tunnel Finder for the cooldown recovery speed because the faster we cool down, the better, and the more spells we can like speed out. Then 1 point into Rock Phase. This is very strong for Sorcerer in general because having stun immunity like that is insane, as stun immunity is a very rare affix, and not being able to be stunned means that your monolith gameplay is really really nice. Now it's 5.6, but if we use our teleport, it's 5.3. So we have a 1.3 second time where we can get stunned, and that's not that bad out of 5 seconds. That's pretty good considering. And that's pretty much it for teleport. Then for Meteor here, so we take 2 points travel into Craterborn. The cast speed is very strong, like I said, but we only get 10% of it, quote unquote, for Fireball. But like I said, more cast speed, the better. Then 3 points in the Cycle of Fire. This makes it so we don't have to run minus mana cost nodes in Fireball, so we can actually, sustain our Fireball mana. Then 3 points into Shattering Star. Meteor has a chance to break into shrapnel on impact. So that's what this little thing is, like these little projectiles. They are very good for Ignite because having that many extra projectiles means that you can hit a lot of times, because not only can you hit with the actual meteors, but you can hit with the projectiles per time too. So, for instance, if I have 5 meteors and five shrapnels, I can hit 10 times technically on a target, and I can show you here. We have like, well, let me aim it better. 1 second here. I have like 18, 20k damage when we're that's pretty respectable for clear, by the way. But yeah, then 2 points into rapid breakup. We want the rapid breakup so that shrapnel moves faster, like moves bigger in a bigger AoE, so that we clear easier and it's more buttery smooth. Then 1 point travel to force of impact. We ignore aftermath because we're not actually spending mana for meteors. This is worthless. Then 3 points travel to rapid descent. 1 point into twin meteors, so we have an extra meteor. 3 more meteors from meteor shower. The reduced radius doesn't matter because of the shrapnel overlapping, which is why the shrapnel is so strong. Then 1 point travel to rapid impacts. The fall frequency is pretty good because it speeds up the first animation, so like speeds it up, which is really nice. Then, of course, 1 point to Rain of Fire for an extra meteor. So we have 5 meteors in total for 5 different meteors, 5 different overlaps, and makes clear feel buttery smooth. And while we wait for the cooldown, we just use Fireball, and it's all hunky dory and pretty fun. Then for enchant weapon, so we are actually going deep into Spellblade just for this. These nodes literally don't matter, they're just free nodes. But enchant weapon here, we're not using it for its passive because its passive gives us more elemental damage. Not using it for its active there because that does nothing for us. But we get 4 points travel into immolating strikes, which does nothing for us. Then 5 points in eternal flames. This is generic. This will apply to all of your ignites, which is really strong for this build as long as it's on your bar. And if you press the button, it'll go to 50%, which obviously is just as strong. Then 1 point into conflagrate. Activating enchant weapon consumes all ignite stacks on nearby enemies, causing their damage to be dealt instantly. This works exactly how Abyssal Echoes and Puncture works, but there's an added line of text here. Searing Conflagration. Ignites consumed by conflagration deal significantly more damage. This effectively triples our ignite DPS every 12 seconds, which is beautiful, and leads us to hitting Orbis for like 500k sometimes, which is really funny for an ignite build. Then 1 point into Burst of Fire, hitting ignited enemies, cast a fire burst towards them. It's just an extra hit for free on single target. The cooldown's pretty long, but we get 3 points into Flame Blast for the extra cooldown and the more damage. So it's just an extra hit per second. That's all it really is. It's a fire skill, so it gets all the ignite from our fire skills. Then, obviously active duration and stuff like that. And there's not really much else other than that. And that's pretty much it. Oh, Flame Ward. We have a stereotypical Flame Ward setup. It's not really anything different and nothing to really say about this. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the skills. Now let's talk about the passives. So we take 8 points into Scholar for the HP, 7 points into Elementalist for the increased damage because we want as much as possible because we're very greedy with this build. 5 points into Mage Flurry. We want as much cast speed as possible to make our fireball feel smooth. Otherwise, we'll be feeling like molasses in January. 5 points into Ice and Fire. Ignite chance with fire skills. This is all of our stuff. All of our hits are fire skills with this build. And that's one of the strengths of Sork. We get higher values thanks to that fact. So a lot of Ignite chance. And for Spellblade, these 6 points in elemental affinity matter because we want the elemental res. These points literally do not matter. You don't give an absolute crap out of any of these nodes whatsoever. You just don't care. Because none of these actually matter except for specific, like none of these matter, right? They're just here to get us to enchant weapon so we can abuse conflagrate, right? I went for the fire aura stuff because not only does it look cool, it also scales with all of our damage, which is, kind of respectable considering. And it gives us an extra, like, kind of like a passive source of leech from Bleeding Heart while we're walking through enemies. So it's cool. It's just not, obviously what the build is made for. Then for Sorcerer here, 8 points into Brainstorm. We want that mana regen. so we can sustain our fireball infinitely on bosses. 5 points into arcane momentum for the cast speed, obviously, because as much cast speed as humanly possible to make the build feel good. 8 points into Pyromancer for the fire ignite chance, of course, and of course the increased damage over time. 2 point travel into Whirling Snow. We hit enough that this caps our chill chance, which means we don't have to run chill on anything. 5 points into Lava Mancer. The fire pen is really strong, and then of course the fire damage leeches life, which is really strong as well, but we can stack that on top of Bleeding Heart, so it doesn't really matter in the end. 8 points in Inferno. This is some ignite duration. This is really strong. This is a really strong node. This is why Ignite's really strong on Sorcerer specifically. The ignite duration here, and of course the ignite duration there. We get 48% just from these two nodes alone, which is insane because if we look at our idols, we get 25, 25 eventually. And then, of course, we look at our enchant weapon, we get 25%. So this is a lot of ignite duration in a very small amount of space. Then 5 points in Spell Slinger for the mana regen. 1 point travel to Elemental Ascendance. I'm doing it to cap my resistances right now because I'm not relying upon teleport to cap my resistances. Then eventually you'd want full points into Dragon Mage if you could like figure out how to do it. Right now I'm level 94. 6 points could go into this. That's just be increased damage. This works because of the lightning skill, because where Fireball is a lightning and a cold skill. This Fireball is a lightning and a fire skill at the same time. So we get the increased fire damage for fire skills, which is really cool. And of course, 10 points in Dragon Breath, which gives us the ignite chance, which is insane because we want as much ignite chance as possible because we hit 5 times per fireball. So, having that much is nice. And of course, the cycle makes it so that whenever we use a lightning skill, we get 100% ignite chance. So whenever we use our fireball, it literally self buffs itself, which is cool. Then 4 points of recollection. We have a lot of cooldown recovery based things like enchant weapon and teleport, and of course flame ward. So having as much cooldown as possible is very essential for the build. Of course, I do not have cooldown on my calamity. I would love cooldown on my calamity if I could get it, but I did not. So I got the ignite chance with fire skills instead. And that's pretty much it for that. Now for gearing. The gearing's the fun part. This is where I'm going to show you guys all of my work. Oh boy. So for idols, we got ignite duration and fire damage idols. Pretty much your stereotypical fanfare for this kind of setup, and of course a bunch of resistance idols because I'm going up the wazoo and obviously in like legendaries. Now there are ignite effect idols. So in the end, I'm not entirely sure, but we could technically use one of these and then three of the large arcane idols for 24% increased effect. So we only have effect from ignite here, so we could use three of these in the end here, here. I think it's two. Is it two? No, here, and then we'd have 24% or 33%, which is just as much as the fiery dragon shoes give us, which would be very strong. But right now, a lot of my stuff is based on resistances, which sucks, but it's just kind of how it is. Although, yeah. And I don't think I have all three idols anyways for the ignite effect. I have two. Yeah, like I don't have all three anyways. But yeah, that would be a large damage boost itself. So my idol slots aren't perfect. Then for the helmet, obviously, when we want a calamity with ignite fire chance, fire damage over time, cooldown recovery speed, vitality, increased health, endurance, the usual fanfare. Calamity is really strong because we get 220% chance to ignite on hit with fire skills, which is all of our skills. Then, of course, the increased fire damage is really strong. The cast speed is nice as well. And then, of course, we take fire damage when we kill an enemy, which literally doesn't matter because we leech so much. Then bleeding heart here. You don't need all these mods, obviously, on a bleeding heart. A regular bleeding heart is just as strong because we want as much leech as possible on this build to make the build function and feel good. Of course, you want the elemental damage over time, fire pen, fire damage. Ignite chance is really good too. You can get ignite chance on a suffix. Resistances is really strong as well. You can get frailty, HP. There's a lot of things you can put on a bleeding heart. Then Cinder Song here. I got a terrible Cinder Song. I was going to put ignite. I mean, it was going to put elemental damage over time or ignite chance on it, and I did not get the chance. It went dot over time. Or you could also put cast speed, which would be immense. There's a lot of things you could do with Cinder Song, and since she's such a low level, you always get them all the time. Now they buffed Cinder Song recently by changing its base. Now it's a -3 mana cost and -3 fire spells, which helps our mana cost immensely because without it, we're at 21. With it, we're at 7. So obviously, ridiculous. Then for the chest, perfect chest. Obviously, you'd want it on something like a Prism Wraps because, for the HP, or you could use it on, like, what is it called? The movement speed chest. What is it called? You could use it on yeah, if you have like a 4 LP or 3 LP Falcon, I would definitely think about slamming it because having extra movement speed helps through monoliths a lot. So having this with LP would be cool because your bases on Sorcerer don't matter for this build. Then I am using a Mountain Shield. You should be using a Bastion, but I'm using a Mountain Shield because I didn't have the ability to run one because of my resistances. But you'd feel like 20,000 times tankier if you had a Bastion. Now for this ring, so I actually Rune of Creation this ring. This was the ring I was using on the Forge Guard Warpath, and I forgot that you could actually Rune of Creation things. So I have two of these. That's how I'm capping my Crit Avoid. You'd obviously want movement speed rings instead of this. The HP is nice, but movement speed is integral. Of course, you want endurance, Crit Avoid, resistance, damage. The usual fanfare. Uh, Belt here. I'm only using this for movement speed. If I had more movement speed elsewhere, I don't really care about the belt. You could just run like an elemental damage over time belt with HP on it, and it would probably be better in the end. Uh, then of course the atrophies here. Cast speed is the most important one because you want to be casting as fast as possible. Atrophies are really strong for this build because the pen stacks on top of all of the other stuff you have. You have 50% pen on the tree, so there's 35% pen. Then of course the shred goes up to 40% on a single target, so it's like 85% pen. So it helps us out a lot. And of course the cast speed is really strong. You can get HP on it, frailty is cool, and stuff like that. You can get dot percentage as well. Boots, I still do not have an LP Fiery Dragon shoes. Maybe one day. Then of course 3 LP Soulfire. This is where it started it all. When I dropped this, in terms of like all that resistances, elemental damage over time. You can get cast speed, of course. You can get resistances. Like it's kind of just your catch-all item here. You can get resistances on it mainly, and that would help because then we can move to the ignite effect setup. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the gearing. Hopefully, you guys understand that like this could be done without this gear. Obviously, it's kind of OP the gear, but like it's ignite, so who cares? But yeah, with all that being said, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye.